Narrator says, Hollywood is not just the name of a place, it's the name of a chessboard. A chessboard where everyone is a player, and behind every move lies a purpose. At this moment, the king of his chessboard, Leonardo DiCaprio, was surrounded in his own palace. Leonardo DiCaprio is trying to appear completely calm, but a storm is hidden in his eyes. Standing before him is LAPD Detective Miller, an experienced cop who looks uneasy right now. With him is Mr. Thorne, whose expensive suit and cold eyes indicate he works for people more powerful than the law. Detective Miller says, clearing his throat slightly, as if hesitating to start the conversation, Mr. DiCaprio, we won't take much of your time. We're just here to ask a few questions about a missing person case. Mr. Thorne says, interrupting the detective with no sugarcoating in his voice, don't waste time, detective. Let's get straight to the point. Mr. DiCaprio, where is Zara Malik? Narrator says, it was a direct question, but its depth was greater than the ocean. Upon hearing this name, Leonardo quickly composed his facial expressions like an actor, but alarm bells started ringing in his mind. Leonardo DiCaprio says, with a slight, nonchalant smile, as if hearing a strange joke, Zara Malik? I'm sorry, but I don't know anyone by that name. Perhaps there's some misunderstanding. Mr. Thorne says, pulling a tablet from his pocket and turning on the screen, technology was invented to clear up misunderstandings. He holds the tablet in front of Leonardo. On the screen is a photo, Leonardo and a young, beautiful girl laughing on the beach in Malibu. The photo is very casual and personal. Mr. Thorne says, this photo is from 6 weeks ago at your Malibu beach house. Your memory might not be that good, Mr. DiCaprio. Narrator says, this was the first attack, evidence that couldn't be denied. Leonardo glanced at the photo for a moment, and a slight hardness appeared in his eyes. Leonardo DiCaprio says, still trying to remain calm, oh, that girl. Yes, I remember now. She was an actress. She came for an audition for a small role. You know, people often come to my house. Nothing more than that. Detective Miller says, sir, our phone records suggest it was more than nothing. There were dozens of long conversations between you two in the past 3 months. Isn't that a bit much for an auditioning actress? Narrator says, this was the second attack. Now, it wasn't just about a photo, but about a relationship. Leonardo DiCaprio says, now with a hint of anger in his voice, look, I help young talent. It's in my nature. I must have given her some advice. Are you going to account for every phone call of mine? What are you trying to say? He looks straight into Thorne's eyes, challenging him. Leonardo DiCaprio says, are you accusing me? Do you know who I am? Mr. Thorne says, stepping forward with no fear in his voice, we know exactly who you are. You're Leonardo DiCaprio, Oscar winner, the world's biggest movie star, and champion of the environment. And that's why we're here. A story of a missing girl whose last trail leads to Leonardo DiCaprio. This story won't just be news, it will become a storm. And you'll be at the center of that storm. Narrator says, this was an open threat. Thorne had turned their greatest strength, their fame, into their biggest weakness. Leonardo DiCaprio says, after a moment of silence, now realizing this wasn't an ordinary investigation, what do you want? Mr. Thorne says, the truth. What happened that night at your beach house? Every single detail. Leonardo averts his gaze from them and looks toward the distant city. He knew his next sentence was crucial. A lie could trap him, and the truth might be even more dangerous. Leonardo DiCaprio says, finally, taking a deep breath, as if lifting a heavy burden, she wasn't alone that night. Mr. Thorne says, a sharp glint of interest flashes in his eyes, like a hunter smelling blood. Then who else was with her? Narrator says, it was a straightforward question, but the answer was like a maze. A path where Leonardo could either be freed or trapped forever. Thousands of thoughts raced through his mind. Should he tell the truth? Would these people believe the truth? Or was the truth itself a trap laid by his enemies? He decided to understand the rules of this game before giving a direct answer. Leonardo DiCaprio says, after a long silence, fixing his gaze on Thorne, it's not as simple as you think. This story involves names whose mention could cause earthquakes in this city. Before I give you any name, I want to know who I'm talking to. Detective Miller represents the law. But you, Mr. Thorne, who do you represent? What power is behind you? Because I know this matter has gone far beyond the LAPD's jurisdiction. Narrator says, this wasn't just an answer, it was a counterattack. Leonardo wasn't just defending anymore. He was questioning their intentions and testing his position on the chessboard. Mr. Thorne says, a flicker of admiration appears in his eyes for a moment, as if appreciating a master player's move. You're as intelligent as always, Mr. DiCaprio. Fine. I represent those who believe Hollywood is an empire, and running an empire requires some sacrifices. They don't want a small missing girl story to crack the walls of this empire. Now, will you answer my question? Or should we assume you don't want to cooperate? Leonardo DiCaprio says, so, the studio? You're the studio's fixer. You didn't come here to learn the truth. You came to twist the story to your liking. Mr. Thorne says, I just came to ensure the villain in the story is assigned to the right person. So one last time, who was that other person? Narrator says, Leonardo had made his decision. He wouldn't be the sacrificial lamb. If this chessboard was set, he wouldn't remain just a pawn. He'd become a player. He took a deep breath and uttered the name that could change the entire game. Leonardo DiCaprio says, emphasizing the words as if dropping a bomb. That night, with Zahr Malik was your boss, the head of Magnus Film Studio, Arthur Valance. Upon hearing this name, Detective Miller, who had been silent until now, startles and steps back. His face turns pale. He looks at Thorne in disbelief, but Thorne's face shows no surprise, only a cold familiarity, as if he had expected this answer. Detective Miller says, what? Arthur Valance? Hollywood's most powerful man? Mr. DiCaprio, do you realize how big an accusation you're making? The consequences could be very serious. Leonardo DiCaprio says, I also know that I'm telling the truth, detective. Zara was his new protege. He was going to cast her in his next film. That night, the three of them were there for a private meeting. I was only there for half an hour to meet Arthur. When I left, they were both still there, and the atmosphere between them didn't seem right. Zara looked worried. Mr. Thorne says, calmly, that's a very big accusation, Mr. DiCaprio, especially when you have no proof. Because the information we have proves your story false. Leonardo DiCaprio says, what do you mean? Mr. Thorne says, Arthur Valance says he left your beach house at 10 o'clock that night. His driver confirmed it. His car's GPS tracking confirmed it. Even a waiter at a famous restaurant in Beverly Hills confirmed that Mr. Valance dined there at 11 o'clock. He's legally safe in every way. Every word from Thorne hits Leonardo like a hammer. He's realizing how meticulously this trap was planned. Mr. Thorne says, on the other hand, your car, Mr. DiCaprio, was at your beach house until 3 in the morning. You have no alibi. You were alone with Zahr Malik. Leonardo DiCaprio says, sad face in anger and helplessness, raising his voice. That's a lie. It's a trap. I was there because it's my house. I often spend the night there. He wants to blame me. He's sacrificing me to save himself. Narrator says, and this was the moment when Leonardo DiCaprio realized he wasn't just suspected of murder, but the center of Hollywood's biggest conspiracy. His name, his fame, his entire career, everything was at stake. And his enemy wasn't an ordinary criminal, but a king who could sacrifice anyone to save his empire. Mr. Thorne and Detective Miller have left the garden. Leonardo DiCaprio is still standing there, sunlight falling on his face, but a cold darkness in his eyes. His last words, he's sacrificing me, still echo in the air. The two silent men who were with Thorne are still standing at a distance, as if ensuring Leonardo doesn't run away. Narrator says, fear, helplessness, and anger. These three emotions were surging like a storm in Leonardo's mind. For the first time on Hollywood's chessboard, he felt that he wasn't just a king, but also a pawn that could be sacrificed. He had two paths ahead, either accept his fate by getting trapped in this web, or overturn the chessboard itself. Leonardo takes a deep breath. The expressions of helplessness and fear on his face have now turned into a cold, deep, and calculating anger. He knows every step must be taken carefully now. He pulls his phone from his pocket and dials a number. This wasn't his lawyer or manager's number. It was a number used only when conventional paths are closed. Leonardo DiCaprio says, on the phone, in a low but extremely serious voice, Gavin, it's me. From the other side, only listening sounds come. Leonardo DiCaprio says, yes, it happened. It's a complete trap. Arthur Valance, Zahr Malik, my beach house. Everything seems pre-planned. They've prepared a steel alibi for Arthur and made me the villain in this story. They say my car was there until 3 in the morning, while Arthur left at 10. He listens to the other side for a few moments, his face hardening further. Leonardo DiCaprio says, "I'm not interested in breaking his alibi, Gavin. It's been made very cleanly. I want you to find a new story, the real story. I need to know everything about Zara Malik, who she was, who her friends were, who her enemies were. She wasn't just an actress. There's much more behind her. And Arthur Valance, I want you to dig up every corner of his life that he's hidden from the world. His financial dealings, his secret meetings, his previous discoveries. He must have left some thread behind, and I need that thread. This is no longer a game of defense, Gavin. Now we'll attack." He hangs up the phone. There's a dangerous resolve in his eyes now. He turns back and sees one of Thorne's men has come closer. Thorne's man says, with a threatening smile, "Phone calls won't help, Mr. DiCaprio. Some fights can be won. It's better if you cooperate and end the matter quickly." Leonardo looks him straight in the eyes. There's no fear on his face now, only a cold, unbreakable confidence. Leonardo DiCaprio says, with a metallic chill in his voice, "Tell your boss, Arthur, that Hollywood loves underdog stories. His mistake was casting me in that role, and I never lose." Thorne's man startles a bit at this unexpected response. He nods and silently retreats into the shadows. Leonardo is now standing alone in the garden. Narrator says, "The lines have been drawn. This was no longer just a missing girls case. It was a declaration of war between two of Hollywood's most powerful people. A war to be fought not with bullets, but with secrets and lies." And Leonardo DiCaprio, the actor who had saved himself from a sinking ship and a bear attack on screen, had now entered the most dangerous role of his life. Himself. Leonardo DiCaprio is in his calm, modern home office. On the large wall screen, a news channel is playing with the sound off, but the running headline is clear: Hollywood's big star under investigation in missing actress case. There's anger and a cold resolve on Leonardo's face. Narrator says, "The first attack of war always comes with words." The next morning, Leonardo realized that Arthur Valance had mobilized his most powerful army, the media. The story had leaked, but twisted in one direction, toward Leonardo. Leonardo is talking to his agent on the phone, with firmness in his voice. Leonardo DiCaprio says, "David, I don't care what the studio thinks. Is there a morality clause in the contract?" "Yes, of course there is. But no charges have been filed against me yet. This is just a leak. This is Arthur's doing. He's trying to corner me professionally." He listens to the response on the other side. Leonardo DiCaprio says, "Let them say they're reviewing the deal. Tell them if they back out, I'll fund the film myself. But first, tell me who leaked this news. I need the name of that blogger, that journalist, that channel who ran this story first." He hangs up. At that moment, his private investigator, Gavin, enters the room. He has a thin file in his hand. Gavin says, "The news leaked from the blog we expected. Tracing its funding wasn't hard. Arthur's people are behind it. That was the easy part. The hard part is Arthur himself. His life is a fortress. Entering it is almost impossible." Leonardo DiCaprio says, "So you came empty-handed?" Gavin says, placing the file on the table, "Empty-handed against Arthur. But I focused on the girl, Zara Malik. She wasn't just an emerging actress. She was very intelligent. She knew what dangerous game she was part of. She wasn't just a victim. She was a player too." Leonardo looks at Gavin with interest. Gavin says she had a secret, a safety deposit box she opened under a fake name in a small bank. "It took me the whole night to find it. According to my source, Zara told a friend it was her insurance policy." Narrator says, "Insurance policy," two words that changed the entire atmosphere of the room. These words were a ray of hope and also an alarm bell. Leonardo DiCaprio says, with a new sparkle in his eyes, "Insurance against whom? Against Arthur? Or against all his powerful clients?" Gavin says, "That's what I think too. Whatever is in that box, it's the key to this whole case. But there's a problem. If I can find it, Thorne and Arthur's people can too. In fact, they might have already found it." Leonardo DiCaprio says, "So if it's a race." Gavin says, "Exactly. A race to reach that evidence." Narrator says, now a new piece had entered the chessboard. A key, a safety deposit box, and the secrets hidden in it. This was no longer just an investigation. It had turned into a race. A race where the winner gets the truth and the loser gets destruction. Leonardo DiCaprio's home theater, which has now become a sort of war room. On the large screen are city maps, bank details, and photos of Zara Malik. Leonardo, Gavin, and a member of his legal team, Maya, are all engaged in intense discussion. Narrator says, when your enemy has unlimited power, your greatest weapon is speed. Leonardo knew that Arthur Valens and Thorne's people would cross every limit to reach that safety deposit box. They had only a few hours before that evidence disappeared forever or was altered. Leonardo DiCaprio says, the bank's name? Address? Tell me everything, Gavin. Gavin says it's a small, private bank in Santa Monica. Not very famous. That's probably why Zara chose it. But the problem is the box is under a fake name, Evelyn Reed, and it requires 2 keys to open. One key is with the bank, and the other is missing. Maya, lawyer, says, and we can't legally open that box without a solid reason and a court order. That would take days. By then, it'll be too late. Leonardo DiCaprio says, thinking, so we need the other key. Where would Zara have hidden it? Some place she visited often? A friend she trusted? Gavin says, we're working on that. My team is looking for a friend mentioned in her diary. But Thorne's people will be looking for her too. This is a race where we're behind. Suddenly, a message comes on Gavin's phone. He reads it, and his face becomes more serious. Gavin says, it's too late. Leonardo DiCaprio says, what do you mean? Gavin says, Thorne's people have reached Zara's friend. They've taken her into protective custody. She won't tell us anything now. This path to the key is closed. A disappointed silence falls over the room. Leonardo sits in his chair, his mind rapidly searching for new paths. Narrator says, this was another blow. It seemed Arthur Valens was always 2 steps ahead. Every door they knocked on was already shut. Leonardo DiCaprio says, suddenly standing up, with a new sparkle in his eyes, no, there's another way. A place Thorne wouldn't even think to search. Gavin and Maya look at him questioningly. Leonardo DiCaprio says, the set of her last film. The film she was auditioning for. The film Arthur Valens was producing. Zara must have had a private locker on set. Maybe she hid her insurance policy there, right under her enemy's nose. Narrator says, an extremely dangerous but clever move. Leonardo had decided to play a gamble where, if caught, his career could end forever. They had to sneak into the film set before Thorne's people got there too. Leonardo DiCaprio's home theater, now fully presenting a war room scene. On the large screen are blueprints and security routes of Magnus Film Studio. Leonardo, Gavin, and the lawyer, Maya, are hunched over the table, making a fast-paced plan. Narrator says, when your enemy is bigger than the law, sometimes you have to break the law to get justice. Leonardo DiCaprio had played many dangerous roles in his life, but tonight he was about to become a thief in reality. His goal wasn't money, but to steal the truth. Leonardo DiCaprio says, picking up the key, found it. This is the bank key. Then he picks up the folded page, unfolds it, and reads it in the flashlight's light. Narrator says, the key was found, but the writing on that page shook the ground beneath their feet. On the page was written, he's not what he seems. AV is afraid of him too. He calls himself the director. Leonardo DiCaprio says, in surprise and fear, the director, AV meaning Arthur Valens, is afraid of him? What nonsense is this? Suddenly, they hear footsteps in the distance. A security guard is on patrol. Gavin says, we have to go. Now, they both quickly hide in the shadows and exit the same way they came in. Narrator says the key was in their hands, but with it came a new, more terrifying question. Who was the director? It seemed they were about to challenge not just a pawn, but the owner of the entire chessboard. A safe, anonymous place, which is Leonardo DiCaprio's private safe house. Gavin is working quickly on his laptop, while Leonardo is looking at the small key and the diary page. There's deep thought and worry on his face. Narrator says, the danger was no longer just Arthur Valens. An unknown enemy, the director, had now become the biggest ghost in this game. The key was in their hands, but they didn't know if it would open a treasure chest or Pandora's box. And time was slipping away fast. Leonardo DiCaprio says, any way out, Gavin? We can't just go to the bank like this. Thorne's people will be at every corner. Gavin says, without taking his eyes off the laptop, no direct way. But in the last few hours, I've scoured every aspect of Zara's life. She opened this box under trust. Legally, if the trust owner is missing for more than 10 days, their legal representative can open it. I'll put Maya, the lawyer, on it. She's preparing papers to present her as Zara's legal representative. Leonardo DiCaprio says, "How long will it take?" Gavin says, "According to Maya, we can get a 1-hour window between 9 and 10 tomorrow morning. But if the bank calls Arthur Valens for verification, the game will end right there." The scene changes. The next morning, that small private bank in Santa Monica. Leonardo and Gavin, both in ordinary clothes to avoid recognition. They're heading to the vault with the bank manager. The atmosphere is extremely tense. Narrator says, this was the longest path of their lives. At every step, there was fear that an alarm would go off, someone would recognize them, or Thorne's people would suddenly appear. In the vault's cool air, they felt their future being decided. The bank manager opens safety deposit box number 247 and hands it to them in a private room. Leonardo DiCaprio says to Gavin in a low voice, "We don't have much time. Open it." Gavin opens the box. On top are a few bundles of cash and a fake passport. But underneath, in a velvet pouch, is what they came for, about half a dozen USB drives. The scene returns to the safe house. Gavin plugs a USB drive into his encrypted laptop. After a few seconds of silence, files open on the screen. Gavin says, "Got it." Leonardo leans toward the screen. There are videos and financial records, but they're not Arthur Valence's. Leonardo DiCaprio says, in surprise, This is Marcus Blackwood, the head of Paramount." Gavin plugs in another drive. It has secrets of a famous politician. The third has another studio owner's. Leonardo DiCaprio says, in disbelief, this wasn't just an insurance policy. This is a library of Hollywood's deepest secrets. Zara wasn't just an actress. She was collecting secrets. Gavin says she was blackmailing them all. But none of them seem like the director. Wait, there's another file. It's encrypted. Gavin quickly tries to crack the code. After a few minutes of intense silence, the file opens. It's an audio file. Leonardo DiCaprio says, "Play it." Gavin plays the audio. From a speaker comes Zara Malick's frightened voice, as if leaving a message for someone. Zara's voice. "If you're listening to this, it means they've gotten to me. This was never about Arthur. It was always about the director. He controls everyone. He cleans up everyone's mess. He said he'd make an example of me." One last, spectacular production. Suddenly, Zara's voice cuts off, and a new, digitally distorted voice replaces it. The director's voice. "You're interfering in a world you can't understand, Mr. DiCaprio. The show is over. The actress has played her role. Don't try to rewrite the ending." The audio file ends and deletes itself. Leonardo and Gavin stare at each other in shock. Narrator says, this wasn't a threat. It was a declaration. The director wasn't just a secret. He was watching them. He knew every move they made. The game was no longer just Hollywood's. It had become life and death. Deep, stunned silence in the safe house. Leonardo DiCaprio and Gavin are staring at the blank laptop screen, where the director's threatening message echoed moments ago. The room's silence now feels more terrifying than before. Narrator says, the worst kind of fear is the fear of the unknown. An enemy with no face, no name, but whose reach is deeper than your imagination. The director was no longer just a secret. He was a ghost who had entered even their safest fortress. Leonardo DiCaprio says, in a low, uncertain voice, "He heard us. He knew we were looking at that file. How is this possible, Gavin? This place was safe." Gavin says, signs of worry on his face for the first time, "This isn't ordinary hacking, Leo. This is the level of surveillance only government agencies do. It means the director either works for the government or has enough power to use their resources. We're chasing a ghost." Leonardo DiCaprio says, "So how do we find him? How do we expose someone who doesn't even exist?" Gavin says, after thinking for a while, a professional sparkle returns to his eyes. "We stop looking for the man. We'll look for traces of his work. He cleans up messes, right? So we'll dig into every major Hollywood scandal from the past 20 years that mysteriously got buried." Every news channel has the same breaking news. Famous private investigator Gavin Wood's arrested on charges of Zara Malick's murder. Key evidence recovered from his apartment. Leonardo is watching this in his safe house. His face is completely blank, like the calm before a storm. Narrator says, the queen had made her move. She hadn't removed the king, but his most powerful protector, the vizier, from the chessboard. The director had framed Gavin, leaving Leonardo completely alone and defenseless. Now Leonardo had no path left. Or at least, that's what the director thought. Leonardo turns off the TV. He dials a number on his phone. Leonardo DiCaprio says, on the phone, hello, this is Leonardo DiCaprio speaking. I need to talk to the host of Character Study. Tell them I have the biggest story of their life for them. The scene changes. Character Study YouTube channel is live. Millions are watching. The channel's host is sitting in front of the camera with intense seriousness on his face. Host says, tonight, we have an unexpected and unprecedented episode. The story we started last week has taken a dark turn, but the story isn't over yet. I have a guest here tonight to break the silence and speak directly to you. Please welcome Mr. Leonardo DiCaprio. The camera turns to Leonardo. He looks tired but determined. He looks straight into the camera, into the eyes of millions of viewers. Leonardo DiCaprio says, my name is Leonardo DiCaprio, and I haven't come here to act today. I've come to make a confession. Yes, I knew Zara Malik. And yes, behind her disappearance lies Hollywood's biggest and darkest secret. A secret controlled by one person, whom they call the director. In the next few minutes, Leonardo tells the whole story. Arthur Valens, the USB drives full of secrets and the threats from the director. He hides nothing. Leonardo DiCaprio says, he thinks by removing my last evidence, Gavin, from the path, he silenced me. But he forgot one thing. Zara didn't keep her insurance policy in just one place. She sent that last audio file to a friend too, and that friend sent it to me. Leonardo plays an audio file from his phone. The whole world listens live to Zara's frightened voice, and then the director's distorted, threatening voice. Narrator says, this wasn't just evidence. It was an explosion. Leonardo had overturned the chessboard itself. He had destroyed the director's biggest weapon, secrecy. Narrator says, the director was never caught. How can you catch a ghost? But his power was in secrets. By bringing those secrets to light, Leonardo had ended his power forever. He had won the game, not just for himself, but for all those voices like Zara Malik that had been silenced. Narrator says, and thus, the biggest chapter of your own channel, Character Study, comes to an end. A story that taught us that sometimes the deepest study of a character is found in the courage to speak the truth. Now the narrator's voice becomes more direct and addresses the viewers. Narrator says, what do you think about this whole story? Did Leonardo take the right step to expose the director? Or was it a huge risk? Be sure to share your deep and fearless opinion in the comments below. Narrator says, and if you're interested in such deep, thrilling, and thought-provoking stories, don't forget to subscribe to Character Study and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Your support gives us the courage to bring such stories to you.